All right, Manny Pacquiao versus Keith Thurman. The fight, 5 years too late, but we're going to watch it anyway. That's what we're going to talk about in this video coming up next. All right, man, ain't this the history of boxing? Another fight that would have been excellent 3-4 years ago is now taking place, has clearly lost a lot of the luster that it would have had if it would have happened when it was supposed to happen. But hey, I'll take it because I do think it's one of the better fights in the welterweight division. I just paid for Manny Pacquiao versus Adrian Broner pay-per-view, so I will be dumb enough to pay for Manny Pacquiao versus Keith Thurman's pay-per-view. But let's talk about the fight itself as it stands today and what most likely is going to happen, what it means in the welterweight division. Now, as far as what it means in the welterweight division, I do believe that this is a crossroads fight, but for the two. Either Manny Pacquiao is going to establish himself as still being the most dangerous welterweight, right? Quieting the suspicions of many fight fans like myself that at 40 years old, he is not one of the top welterweights. If Manny Pacquiao is able to beat Keith Thurman, even a Keith Thurman coming off of an injury, coming off of a layoff, off of a prolonged layoff, coming off of blatant ducks of definitely one of the top tier welterweights being Errol Spence Jr. If Manny Pacquiao is able to pull this fight out, he will definitely solidify himself as a top welterweight, and hopefully he'll be able to move on to fighting the guys like the Errol Spence Jr. Sean Porter winner or the WBO champion Terrence Crawford, right? So that's where he is with this. Now, if Keith Thurman cannot beat Manny Pacquiao, then it's a wrap on Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman will have been shown to have wasted away either through injury, he claims that they're injuries, right? There's some people that suspect that he might not be being completely forthright about his inactivity being caused by injuries. Some people speculate that it has a lot to do with him not wanting to fight that guy over there in the IBF, Errol Spence Jr., and the big paydays that he got for fighting Sean Porter and Danny Garcia that allowed him to go, take a couple years up there in the mountains of Nepal playing a flute, hanging with pretty women. I'm just saying. But if he's not able to beat a 40-year-old Manny Pacquiao with 7 losses, then that tells you right there that, it's cash out time for Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman is not going to be able to beat Errol Spence Jr. He's not going to be able to beat Terrence Crawford. And he might have an extreme difficulty beating Sean Porter for the second time. It is my belief that Manny Pacquiao is an older fighter and that he is not nearly as quick, as strong, or an intimidating a presence in that ring as he was 5 or 6 years ago. There are a lot of people that come to the comment sections. People. Look, age loses to no one. Father Time is undefeated. I know that you love Manny Pacquiao. I know that Manny Pacquiao is one of the most accomplished fighters in boxing in the last this century. I know that he's exceptionally talented. I know that he's got a lot of heart, all those good things, that he's a people's person, that he's a great champion, he's a great ambassador for the sport of boxing. I understand all of that stuff. But when you're 40 years old and you've had 60 fights, over 60 fights, I do believe. When you've had that many fights, you've been competing. He's 40. He started fighting professionally when he was 16. That's 24 years ago, man. It's 24 years ago. your body is going to start to decline. And as great as you have been, when there are other great young fighters coming up, and you're long in the tooth, it is only a matter of time. It's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when it is going to happen, and when it is going to happen, ugly style. Personally, I believe that ugly style loss was going to be if he had really taken that fight with Errol Spence Jr. He thought the wiser of it. He thought the wiser of that. That fight was offered to him. That fight was a pay-per-view fight. That fight was for a belt. He was in the ring with Errol Spence Jr. He chose not to take that fight. That tells you something. Actions speak louder than words. That tells you something about where Manny Pacquiao thinks he is in his career. That he's not fighting Errol Spence Jr., that he's not fighting Keith Thurman, that he's not fighting Terrence Crawford. Now, Terrence Crawford, quite honestly, could have something more to do with him getting away from, Bob Arum, and I don't blame him at all for that. But it says something about where he thinks he is in his career. That said, I do believe he has a chance to beat Keith Thurman, because again, Keith Thurman has been very inactive. He's been very injury prone. He looked somewhat shaky in his return fight. I think that Manny Pacquiao has a chance to win this fight. I do not believe that Manny Pacquiao more than likely is going to win this fight, because although Keith Thurman looked shaky in his last fight, that's one training camp, a fight, and now a second training camp. He's going to be in a better position in this next fight than he was in the last fight. And Keith Thurman is a very talented fighter. He's got very fast hands. He's got very good, even in that fight with Josecito Lopez, he showed that he really did still have a good amount of endurance. He had enough pop to catch that guy. I think he was moving back a little bit when he caught Josecito Lopez with that hook. But he's a very, very experienced fighter who's had his eyes on Manny Pacquiao for a very long time. Now, unlike a fight with Josecito Lopez, where I doubt very much Keith Thurman had his eye and had his focus on Josecito Lopez for half a decade, Keith Thurman knows how Manny Pacquiao fights. And one of the statements that he's made is that Manny Pacquiao's approach is very predictable. Yeah, it's going to be predictable. Well, the thing is, when it's predictable, the question is, can you do something about it? When somebody is that fast and somebody is that strong as Manny Pacquiao had been in the past, you can predict and know what's happening, but that doesn't mean that you can do something about it. But when the guy gets older and you can see it coming, you know that it's coming, then and it's against a younger guy, a guy that's 10 years younger with that much championship experience. I mean, Keith Thurman was a unified welterweight champion. And he's been a champion he's a long reigning champion at this point in time. So, I don't know if it'll go to the point where Keith Thurman said it was going to go, where he's going to show Manny Pacquiao that the exit's to the left, that it's time to go. Keith Thurman is always a funny dude, though, man. That's a funny dude. Well, he said that he was going to retire Manny Pacquiao, and he's going to be the one to show the legend that the exit's to the left, and he's not about to lose to a guy with 7 losses on his record. Man, that's all the truth, man. That's all the truth. But I think that it'll be a good fight. I lean towards Keith Thurman over Manny Pacquiao for the reasons that I stated. I mean, later on when we get closer to the fight, I guess we can look more at like the technical aspects of it. But I think Keith Thurman's straight right. I think Keith Thurman's a straight right hand and a pivot out to his, and a back foot pivot out to his left is going to be a big difference in this fight. The reach, the length and the reach, the speed, his foot speed, his one punch, he has enough power to hurt you and keep you honest. And his experience, I think, is going to be the difference in this fight. Now, if it's not and Manny Pacquiao is able to beat him, then the question becomes what's next. And honestly, the question is what's next for either one of them. And that should be a unification fight with one of the champions. Now, there's going to be another unification fight, from what I understand, coming up between Errol Spence and Sean Porter. So hopefully the winner of that fight will fight, of this fight, Manny Pacquiao and Keith Thurman will fight the winner of that fight, Errol Spence Jr. or Sean Porter. And then we can have 3 of the belts wrapped up. And then after that, we can get the Errol Spence Jr. versus Terrence Crawford fight. Because I'm telling you how these things are coming out. Anyway, it is what it is. Like I said, I'll buy the pay-per-view. Let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.